I've got the Nordlite Ultra Pro on my feet here right now. And I did a previous test run in the new Xplor Pro. No, I am not running with a different shoe on each foot today. These are actually quite different shoes, so let's get into the specs right away and you'll kind of get an idea what I'm talking about. The Nordlite Ultra Pro comes in at 40.5 millimeters under the heel with a 6 mil drop, giving 34.5 under the forefoot. It clocks in at a very competitive racing weight of 10.2 ounces. The Xplor Pro specified at 38.5 under the heel with the same 6 mil drop, giving 32.5 under the forefoot. I did measure the heel stack of both shoes and I pretty much got an equal 40 millimeters. So I couldn't find that 2 mil difference that they specified. They're pretty close in my measurement at the heel, but they do feel a little bit different underfoot, which I will certainly get to. The Xplor Pro weighs in at a large 12.0 ounces. I do have both models in a US 10. I took the Xplor Pro out the other day for about a 7 or 8 mile run. Similar terrain as I'm running in now. A little bit of rocky sections on the way up and down. Nothing too crazy or too steep. That shoe at that weight, it just kind of feels like a beast underfoot. You could also take a look at that Vittoria outsole there. I measure 4 mil lugs on the outer edges. This is marketed as a gravel shoe for sure, and it certainly has the outsole to match that branding aspect. It actually does look like, I know they took a bike tire and flattened it out and stuck some running shoe midsole foam inside rather than air. Craft shoes this season have gone through pretty major revamp with their upper design. They had a lot of feedback, and certainly this is something I was beating the drum about with every craft shoe I've ever tested. The uppers were just too much material in them. They would just wrap all the way over the top of the foot, to the point where, you know, the two sides were meeting in the middle, and I could just never really get a good secure foothold pretty much with any craft trail shoe. Check out my Nordlite Ultra 2 review video for more details on what they've done with their uppers. Pretty much the same with these two models as I found with that one. They essentially solved the problem, fixed the issue, made the uppers more or less normal. So with those upper updates seemingly across their model lineup, I've been able to get pretty good and secure fit with the Nordlite Ultra 2 and both Pro models that I've been testing recently. There's plenty of space along the throat of the shoe to adjust the tension as needed. I've also found it's kind of allowed a bit more width and volume inside each of the shoe. That also gives me much more comfortable fit across all three models. I will note that on sizing in the Ultra 2, I did have a US 9.5. I thought perhaps with the updated uppers, could go true to size. It worked okay, but craft shoes have just a slight taper at the front of the toe box, and I just found a little bit of touch of rubbing, big toe side at a 9.5. Had to wear thin socks with those to kind of mitigate that. So I did go up in sizing to US 10s for both the Xplor Pro and the Ultra Pro here. The fit is definitely better in my size US 10s here. I would recommend for, I would say, general trail running, if you have a regular or moderate width or volume foot, I would say go half a size up with craft to avoid any potential issues, you know, with the taper at the front of the toe box. If you have a narrow foot, then you could probably go true to size. This half size up is working perfectly for me in both models, especially the Ultra Pro here. A little bit better for me than the Xplor Pro. When I get back to the truck at the end, I'll do a little more compare and contrast between fit for both models. But this one, I find very healthy width across the forefoot, which is really nice. And it also feels like I'm getting very secure hold around the middle of the foot. I'm not sure if that might be a little too squeezy around the midfoot for some, but again, I think with the space there across the lace throat, you can vary how tight you want that to be. This is the kind of fit that I like. Snug around the midfoot, nice and secure, but not pinching in at the forefoot, and certainly not any kind of taper touching at the tips of my toes. And going a half size up here has eliminated that issue with the new Craft models. So let's talk first about the Nordlite Ultra Pro here. Definitely dropped some weight compared to the regular Nordlite Ultra 2. Again, 10.2 here. I measured 10.5 ounces for the regular version. And again, that was even a half size smaller. The foam is, in both models, Craft CR foam, but in this Pro model, it is labeled CR Foam Pro. CR Foam is a supercritical nitrogen-infused EVA. The Pro model mixes in 25% PBA there. So that's a difference you have between the two midsoles. And I do feel that on the run. Of course, 0.3 ounces lighter, which is somewhat marginal, but I am feeling that PBA in the mix here. The Nordlite Ultra 2 felt like a quick shoe, but it felt like it was pretty highly dependent on the geometry. The rocker of that shoe, that big kind of toe sweep up front, really falling into the toe off. It's the same here in this model with that kind of geometry, but again, 25% PBA. I do feel that extra bit of bounce here, and again, it is a bit lighter, so that's certainly felt, and it makes this shoe definitely feel more fun, more energetic underfoot. Even going up that little steep hill back there, I also noticed the difference in a little bit of pop, a little bit of energy return from the shoe. I kind of felt like I was bouncing up that hill a little bit, even though it was pretty steep. I think the rocker geometry also helps with that. You're really, the steeper it is, you can really lean into that toe sweep, and it just feels really nice and stable climbing. And I think that a little bit of PBA actually does help. I did feel like I was just really kind of popping off the forefoot a little bit on the way up. I have to say, the ride of this Nordlite Ultra Pro is feeling really great right now. This is the first impressions run. First run in this shoe. You saw the clean outsole back there. It's really feeling energetic underfoot, and I'm actually, most importantly, loving the fit and security. I really love the forefoot feel. No pinching at all from the sides. No hot spots under the middle of the ball of the foot, which can happen when I get a squeeze at the forefoot. Also, the midfoot hold feels really excellent. I went through a little bit of squiggly kind of sections over there. Got a chance to maybe see if the foot would twist or, overly twist or turn in one direction or another. And I didn't take any wrong steps. I didn't have any twists or turns of the ankle or anything, but I also did feel like I was really in control. Like I could really have a sense of the shoe, both around my foot and of the ground, proprioceptively coming up to my foot. There is definitely a different feel with the Xplor Pro. These are certainly two different classes of shoes. And to tell you the truth, I thought as I was running here, I would go in sequence and talk about the Xplor Pro first, and then this one as I continue on my run, but this one's just feeling so good. I think I'm just gonna focus on this one here and talk more about the Xplor Pro model when I'm done and back at the truck. I believe this Nordlite Ultra Pro model was expressly designed for racing at Western States, and I can totally see what they're trying to go for here. It's essentially kind of like a road shoe, you know, dressed up for the trails. And we're not just talking about, say, gravel here with a light outsole. You've also got the Victoria rubber on this model, like the Xplor Pro, and you have a legit 4mm lugs around the outside edges of the outsole there. I notably measured around 3mm. Some of the ones in the middle, so they don't really specify, but it seems there's some variation in outsole lug depth here. It seems to be really grabbing this dry, sandy, mixed, kind of small, gravelly, rocky trails that I'm running on today. The midsole foam being a little bit softer seems to give me a little bit more contouring on the ground, I would say. It feels like it's flexing a little bit around what's underneath the foot, and those kind of Victoria lugs seem to be really grabbing. A little bit steep grade here, kind of sandy, a little bit loose, and not slipping at all here. So rubber's quite good. Again, with that geometry as I'm leaning into the hill, really putting good pressure, good force into the forefoot, which feels like really good power to the ground, and also, like I said, helping that outsole contour, grab and grip. So getting back to Western States specificity, I really feel like there's a lot to talk about here with this shoe. Obviously, the CR Foam Pro feels very energetic. I love the feel of this foam. I think it's, I don't know, my recollections may be off, but this feels like the best craft midsole foam that I've certainly run in. I've run in the Pure Trail, I've run in CTM Ultra 3 Endurance Trail, I think was the name of another one. But all those models, I really had problems with the upper, so really hard to gauge the midsole feel, being that I was typically really squeezing my foot more than I would like to hold the shoe on my foot. So I would say that this is definitely the best craft midsole from my memory. There's also no plate in the mix. A lot of trail super shoes or super type shoes have gone that route recently, away from carbon fiber, away from plates entirely. You've got the Cloudultra Pro nylon fiberglass plate. You've got the 005, Chirac 02, well, of course 01 also. No plates in those shoes. Also the Prodigio Pro, which has something of a thin film, but this one, no plate, no film, no nothing. Just pure midsole. Also 6mm drop, something that differentiates it. When I was saying earlier that it feels like a road type shoe adapted for the trails, you might see a higher drop in a road shoe, certainly a road super shoe, maybe at least 8, sometimes even 10, but 6mm here, really working well on the trails. Feels great underfoot, nice and balanced. It doesn't feel like I have a heft of chunk under my heel. It definitely feels, being that the forefoot is wide and gives me that good ground feel, it kind of balances out having 6mm of extra height under the heel. So wider forefoot, taller heel, at least in this model, works out to very good balance. I am also feeling a good amount of flex around the middle of the shoe. It doesn't feel like rigid in any way. That is something I felt a little bit with the Nordlite Ultra 2. It felt like that was really designed for smoother trails, and I thought maybe it just felt a little more rigid. Maybe it was that stiffness in the middle that gave me a little pause from really running trails in that shoe. Of course, firmer midsole. Here with this package, you seem to have a more adaptable midsole foam, and maybe that makes it a little more flexible. in the middle of the shoe. I haven't actually flexed it yet in hand. I'm gonna pull over and we're gonna do that. All right, good little spot here for a stop. Take a look at these shoes here. First of all, you'll notice, I've been testing a few different shoes recently and I have a little issue here. Look how much space you have in this tongue above the eyelet. Even the second eyelet, if I needed lace locking, which I don't in this shoe, a lot of extra tongue space. Why can't every shoe be like this? Why can't we get it together here? This is great. You have a little bit of a lighter weight mesh than the Nordlite Ultra 2. Definitely a closed mesh too. I don't feel like, it's not super hot today, but it feels quite breathable. You can see some ventilation over here. I haven't noticed it being hot. These laces, one thing, they strike me as being a bit thin. I'm not sure what's going on here. The shoe feels very well built, very sturdy, very durable, but the laces are just very, very light and thin. I don't know. Anyway, take a look here. Yeah, just as kind of I suspected and just like it felt on the run. Definitely a good amount of twist around the middle of the shoe. I think that works great. As I was saying, there's some contouring. You look at how that foam feels underfoot. Look at how this is going to adapt. Again, Vittoria rubber here. And as you're kind of putting pressure into the ground, CR Foam Pro, a little bit of PIBA in the mix. It feels great and it seems to allow more adaptation underfoot, certainly more than I felt with the Nordlite Ultra 2. Look how that could kind of grab on the ground, okay? And again, I noticed I actually did not twist this shoe yet. On the run, it felt like this is how it would twist, and it's really good. You notice segmented outsole here. We'll see how durability holds up. This is my first run here, but it certainly allows good flex. And as I was going uphill there, the rocker geometry, you really feel like you could lean into this part of the shoe. When you're in the shoe standing around, say in the house, it feels very aggressive, the toe rocker. It feels almost like it's maybe perhaps too much at the front of the shoe. When you're standing in the shoe in the comfort of your own home, I noticed that was something I was thinking about. And as I was on the run, it feels less apparent. So when you're standing in the shoe, it feels like, oh, maybe a little thin up front here. I feel like I'm maybe rolling into it, maybe a little touch too early. Maybe it wouldn't be as protective under the forefoot or something. That's kind of what I had in mind. But on the run, it doesn't feel that way at all. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the softness or energy of it. It feels less apparent on the run. It feels like a, pretty substantial or noticeable inflection point where it kind of turns over right here, standing. But on the run, it's very smooth. It really smooths out a lot on the run, and that really works well. Flex is good here. The padding around the heel cup is really excellent. No issues with collar bite at all anywhere. It's really comfortable. This seems to kind of press nicely against my Achilles without any irritation, and there's a little bit of a deeper cup below this ring of quite thick padding. The Xplor 2 has a really poofy section of padding here. This is similar along those lines. I prefer to see this versus, a hard edge that's kind of wrapping up against the side of your ankle or wherever. This seems to work really well. And again, with, in combination with a deeper seated heel cup, it seems to just work really well for my foot. The heel hold is excellent, and you can see here I don't have any lace locking, so I find the width right here on the forefoot is excellent for me. As I lace these up, previous craft shoes, these parts would be here, and then I would just kind of be like, I couldn't even tighten it as much as I wanted to. This feels great. It almost reminds me of a Topo I've been running in the Vista recently, in terms of having that really dialed holding fit right here around the arch in the middle of the foot, yet very nice and comfortable around here. And again, being that I'm half size up in a 10, this works much better. There's a slight taper here, so in my Nordlite Ultra 2, when I was, say, 9.5 true to size, I guess this little bit of taper was a little further back, and it was just kind of getting my big toe. This shoe could perhaps be wider, being, I don't know, pro model Western States design. It's possible that this is wider. I would not want to have a true to size 9.5 though, as I did in the Nordlite Ultra 2. I like this 10 here. This is feeling really great. This is certainly racing capable shoe. I have a race coming up. I'm going to talk about that. Maybe I might run it. So let's talk a little bit about the Xplor Pro on my way back. If this is a Western States design shoe, they actually mentioned that the Xplor Pro is the gravel shoe, and I mentioned the weight there. 12 ounces, certainly very hefty, very far up there. In my run, it felt definitely heavy. Can't get around that. The geometry is a little different between that shoe and the Ultra Pro here. Have a flatter ride there. It's also a 6mm drop, but it's definitely a flatter feel underfoot. There's a little bit of a toe sweep there, but nowhere near as evident in this shoe. Definitely the platform on the ground is much wider. You hear me talk about the Vittoria outsole and how it actually looks like a bike tire. That's kind of how the shoe feels on the run. It just feels like a massive platform that is just rolling or eating up the ground underfoot. The foam is also not the same. That's Craft's PX foam, which was a beaded TPE foam, which they say is similar to P-Backs, but not P-Backs. It's definitely has that kind of bouncy feel to it, but it must be pretty dense because, you know, either that, the density, or just the pure volume of midsole, also outsole underfoot, adds up to that 12 ounces in my size. They do use PX foam in some of their other models. I believe also in road shoes. They say that this is a quote-unquote softer variety of it. I'm not quite sure on that. It's definitely soft for sure. Again, you feel like your foot is just really on a dense bed of that soft TPE foam. There's no way around it. Like this one that I'm running in now, the CR Foam Pro, it feels lighter, definitely more energetic, responsive off the ground. I feel like this one wants to get my foot off the ground and keep me going, whereas that one really seems to just focus on soaking up the ground. I also found the volume of that shoe to be a bit more than the Ultra Pro here. Certainly around the middle of the foot. Just seemed a little bit more space in there. Seemed like I had to dial down the laces a bit more to squeeze it again. I also sized up to a US 10 in that model. This one just feels a little bit more dialed around the middle of the foot. You saw in my close-up there. This Ultra Pro here really working well for my foot, whereas the Xplor Pro, I think, has a bit too much volume for my foot. I did notice some squeezing on the run and some pressure under the balls of my foot. I think I might have actually tightened my laces a little bit too tight on that first test run. I'll have to kind of play around with tension a bit as I continue testing that shoe, but I think it's just, I don't know, something about the volume and just the geometry of the shoe. Again, it rides flatter than this model. It seems to not, it's listed as a 6mm drop, but it feels flatter than this 6mm drop for sure. This one, I feel like, it doesn't feel like a high 6mm drop, but it does feel like it's forward oriented, and that I'm getting that kind of forward lean or impulse from this model that I'm not getting from the Xplor Pro, even though it does have the same listed 6mm drop. Another feed item here, Enervit chewable gel. Does that make any sense? You tell me. Ugh. I don't know about this one. Not crazy about this one. Testing the descent here. Pretty good foothold on these. Not much foot sliding. I feel like just pretty normal amount. I feel like I'm maybe pressing up into the front a little bit. That was a little bit steep back there, but I would say not overly sliding forward in the shoe, just slight kind of shift of the foot inside of the shoe naturally as I'm kind of leaning more forward there. Certainly felt comfortable running over some rocky bits at speed there. Again, that kind of flex around the middle of the shoe really works well for me. Also the flex under the forefoot, I just have good ground feel, it feels like. So I feel more comfortable running over that uneven stuff without worrying about twisting an ankle there. So final first impressions on the Nordlite Ultra Pro here. Spectacular shoe from Craft. I think this is a definite viable entry in the super shoe market. Certainly Western States type of shoe, Western States types of trails. Again, if you don't like a carbon fiber plate, you don't feel it's necessary, doesn't work for you, whatever the case may be, this could be a model for you because it does have that energetic foam that you want for racing, but not quite the stiffness that you get from one of those plates. So and also the price is right for this shoe compared to some of those other ones. That alone clearly makes it a viable option if you want to, say, train in the same shoe that you're going to race in. I am headed over to Mammoth Trailfest this weekend. As you're seeing this video, I am in Mammoth Lakes, California. So if you're watching this, well, hopefully you're doing something fun at the event and you're not watching this, but if you find time to tune into this video at some point over the course of the weekend and you see me over there, say hi. I was at TrailCon earlier in the summer and I just had people come up to me and say they enjoyed my videos, and it was pretty cool to meet everyone out there. As far as the actual races, I am doing the triple, so I'm running all three events. Friday is the Dragon's Back Ascent vertical type race. I think I'm gonna run the Vective Sky 2. That shoe's super light and I just love the wide forefoot. I think it's gonna be great climbing, super secure foothold on that shoe. The 50K is the next day, and I think I had the Prodigio Pro lined up for that, being that I hadn't raced in it, but this shoe is honestly giving me second thoughts now. It feels really great, and I don't know, maybe I have to look at the profile a little bit. If I feel like it's probably more runnable than technical, which I think it may be, maybe I'll get a chance to talk to Tim Tollefson before the second day and ask him what he thinks. He's a Craft guy, so maybe I can't trust his advice, but I may race this shoe in the 50K. It feels great right now. Beyond that, 23K to round out the event on Sunday. We'll see how I feel. I had in mind that I will run the S-Lab Pulsar 4 from Salomon just because shorter distance, that shoe feels great for that kind of distance after having done 2 days of racing, but we'll see how my feet feel. I may have to bring something. Maybe I'll go with the Prodigio Pro for a little more comfort and protection if I feel beat up for the last event, the 23K. We'll see. Final first impressions on the Xplor Pro. You can probably tell which is my kind of preference over these two shoes here. The Xplor Pro, certainly a heavier shoe. You know, that's a lot of weight for me, but there have been quite a few max stack, high cushion, and also heavier model trail shoes coming out, and been getting a lot of feedback on those, and I think kind of sussing out the differences between where those or that category of shoes how they stack up against each other is definitely important for different types of runners. So I would say TBD for my recommendation as far as that one. Check out my Topo Vista review, which just came out. That's certainly a competitor to that model. I believe 11.8 ounces, if I'm not mistaken. So right in the range of weight for the Xplor Pro. A little bit different feel, but I can get into some comps, some Q&A, some more cushion shoe roundups. Why not? But for now, head back to the truck. We'll give a quick final close-up between these two models because they did just come out. So I want to get some information out there if you had your eyes on these and were perhaps choosing between the two or thinking about one or the other for one of your upcoming fall races. Quick look at both of these Pro models here. Got the Xplor Pro here and the Nordlite Ultra Pro here. I've got one run in each shoe, just ran in this one, and the other day I did a kind of shorter, a little bit shorter run in the Xplor Pro. Talked about some differences on the run here. The profile of the rocker looks similar between these two shoes, but on foot, on the run, this one just feels flatter. It feels like when I'm landing, it's just, my foot just feels flat on the ground, and it definitely feels like a higher volume of foam, probably I would say in the front part of that toe sweep there. So you don't get the sense that you're just really falling into that geometry. Here you could probably see the difference here. It may be subtle, but I could tell here it narrows sharply here, the foam. So you just get into that quicker. You get into that rocker quicker, and it just feels a lot quicker off the forefoot, quicker transition to the toe here. This one you have just a healthier amount, say, ahead of the ball of the foot. Here you really notice that drop off right in front of the ball of the foot, but it's not, say, in an extreme way. Like a shoe I talked about, the Wild Horse 10, these shoes are not comparable, but it just felt super thin up here in the Wild Horse 10. This shoe, it's just the geometry. It's not the thinness of it up here. It's not an issue at all. And I feel like I said, when you're standing there, it feels like, whoa, it just like, that's the point right there. But on the run, you know, with the ground impact, it seems to really smooth out that kind of big toe sweep there. So I just feel like this shoe's quicker off the ground for sure, and that probably definitely has something to do with the it does have something to do with it. The foam itself, you can see the beads here on this TPEE. It's just, I don't know if it's lighter or denser. It's a lot underfoot here. Got the wrong, oh, let's put them this way. Look how wide the Xplor 2 is. It's just a lot underfoot. See, and the rubber continues through. I mean, look at that. Is that a bike tire or what? Did they just open this up and put some foam instead of air? It seems like it, yeah. A lot of rubber, a lot of, you know, a lot more width on the edges here. You know, it's just thicker. It's just a heavier shoe. 12 ounces versus, what was it, 10.2 in this shoe here. So it's just a completely different feel in this shoe. I think for possibly heavier runners and those that this kind of rocker may not appeal to some runners. Probably it's oriented towards faster running for sure. If you want a more solid, stable ride where you feel like with every step your entire foot is on the ground, this is going to appeal to you more than this one. This really feels like it just wants to go. It doesn't want your whole foot like sinking into the ground and then rolling, whereas this one just seems to just, you know, like a monster truck, be on the ground and just totally protect the foot, be soft and cushy, and you know, this shoe is certainly adaptable, but again, with all that rubber, I actually feel, yeah, this is way more flexy, this shoe, than actually this one. So this one may be kind of more supportive and protective, I would say, you know, for those longer, slower, maybe, you know, gravelly, rough, rugged roads where this may feel like a little bit too much action for that type of terrain, this one may be the way to go. A little bit different constructions here. You have a tongue here with just regular old gussets here. Here you have a knit kind of inner booty design. So this blue knit section extends throughout the entire inside of the toe box. You can see that blue there. So you have a 2-layer mesh here. It's probably going to hold some water. Not too sure about that one, but maybe this is just designed for drier type terrain. I mean, it's not a whole lot of mesh here, and you can see it's pretty perforated. So I'm going to have to see how much water this holds. Again, at 12 ounces, plus this knit potentially holding some water. That could add away. That could be something. Tongue definitely thinner, surely breathable, but you know, there's a big bolster running up the middle here. And when I tied this shoe, the knot and the pressure from the laces was sitting right on this middle section here. So I didn't get any lace bite. Both shoes were pretty comfortable. Like I said, I think I might have tightened this one a little bit too much because you could probably tell here, there's more width and volume in this shoe. See through here? This is just designed for kind of a higher volume foot compared to this one. You can see the hourglass kind of shape. It's definitely tapered around the midfoot, which works for my foot. I love this design. Nice and snug here and spacious here. Here, you've got kind of spacious high volume here and, you know, just this spacious up here. I would say there's definitely more volume overall inside this shoe at the same sizing. Just a final quick look at the heel padding there. I talked about this earlier. It's just massively padded around the Xplor Pro here. Definitely built for comfort. No issues. You're not going to get anything hard bumping the edges of your ankle or anything in probably either of these shoes. Maybe here, but I just ran in it. This didn't feel like anything at all. Well padded around here, nothing around the Achilles. And then you could probably look in there, deep heel cup underneath this padding. So I love that for heel hold. So great heel hold in both of these models. Look at the flex here compared to this shoe. It's, you know, it doesn't want to completely fold, but this one is more flexible for sure. I have a nice easy flex here, whereas this one really, it's probably the rubber around here that's preventing it from flexing around this area of the shoe. And then again, it's just massively wide. So 2 new awesome shoes from Craft. Really like them. Again, this is just first impressions. 1 run in each shoe. Be heading over to Mammoth Trailfest. Might be racing in this one, so you may see a more detailed review on this one sooner rather than later. But once I'm back, I've got this shoe and a lot of other high cush cruiser models to compare against. So you will see both of these models in my reviews coming up soon. So thank you for tuning in to Humble Running. Please like and subscribe. Check out the website, www.humblerunning.com. Go to thefeed.com, save yourself 10%. That Enervit gel was not so great today, but you can get whatever you like and still get 10%. So check that out if you want to save yourself 10% and support Humble Running at the same time. I will see you out on the trails in the next one.